People that we have on board is Devin Cole from Work Bar, who will be speaking on the panel. So he's very hot on Salem. They're trying to figure stuff out, so don't give up on it yet. But he'll be on this panel, or he'll be here at the Pen sometime early December. So keep an eye out for that.
We're gonna walk them around.
Yeah.
Places.
We'll take the long way to the Pen.
Devin was great. Talk about they're going through a real growth mode. It is exciting actually to see their space and that type of accommodation for people who need a little or a lot, are in all these flex places. So it definitely is cool.
Do you have something you want to add?
Yeah, I was just going to make a quick point. I think it's important for Salem, as we're a company that is about to hit a high growth, and you'd hate to see a company from these workspaces, these work bars, which I think are great, and that's what gets entrepreneurship started. But to make the sports analogy, to home grow your own dynasty changing prospect, and then whenever they hit the free agent market, that's when you lose them. So does Salem have a plan to get a company from 15 to 100 employees before they go look at office space in Boston and get wooed over by Cambridge? Because at the Bit Bar, that was the one thing they mentioned. We have one huge company in here that changes the image and the PR, and they're always in the globe, more people will naturally come here. And you'd hate to see, I mean, all these ideas about incubating from 1 to 15, 1 to 20, it's that when you hit 20, you hit 40, 60, 80 very quickly, and if there's no where to go, and that probably will happen because everybody's coming here. That's going to happen at some point with some special mind, and I hope there is a plan that's proactive too.
We have a secret plan. Secret plan to end inflation. So I think that's a really good point. You know, one of the things that I worry about is managing the growth that's happening and trying to be thoughtful, not just for today, but you know what the trends are. And even in Salem, you know, we don't have a crystal ball, so it can be really difficult to predict what we're going to need. But we have a lot of upper floors that have been converted for housing. It's great to have people living downtown. It's contributed to the vibrancy. It's created more year-round retail. It helps the restaurants. But are we then taking away opportunities for the you know, the smaller one-offs to now, you know, move up to the upper floors where you would typically see office spaces? And so I think we need to really be strategic in engaging our commercial property owners about, hey, here's what we have now. Again, what's the data look like? What do we have? And how are we planning for that as we're permitting new projects? We allow a lot of flex space when we're permitting, particularly in the B5 district. This is our high density district. So you can have retail on your first floor. We always want that. And then your upper floors can be flexible to kind of accommodate the market. And I think that's good to help get projects developed. But how do we make people hold out? Well, we do a lot of first floor retail with housing above, and we know the retail drags. And so that's okay. It's okay for us, we're not paying the freight, but it's a commitment that we made to want to have active storefronts. We've got to figure out what's the strategy to still want to get projects done, but have a commitment to make sure we're not just doing upper floor housing because that's a good market right now, and then not having enough of the, you know, the mid-size office spaces and components like that. We also have assets like Shetland Park in areas that, how do we develop a strategy around some of those larger office complexes that could be chunkier or broken up. So I hope it's like the good problem for us to have, but definitely being more forward thinking about a strategy on it would be helpful. We need the private sector to like engage with us on that for sure.
And I think to expand the question out to you, but to you, Jason, maybe what is your office currently doing, and not to shine a spotlight on you right now, but what kind of economic models are you developing to promote regional business growth, or that your office is thinking about as the economic development director? What are you thinking in terms of attracting technology? I mean, I focus technology specific because that's our audience this evening, but what initiatives are you doing in general to try and attract business growth to the North Shore in general?
Yeah, Jason, what are you doing?
Solve all our problems, right?
That's why I started this by saying there's only 7 people. But, well, I think, you know, I mentioned a couple already, but I brought up that ICIC, that's a new thing we're going to be working on, which I think is a big deal. I mean, in January, they have a training program, you know, that 80% of the companies that go through it end up getting some form of funding. We're gonna work with the 7 cities in the district to try to get at least 5 companies to participate in that program. Companies that are too small or not, I shouldn't say too small, but like who aren't, you know, big enough for whatever that criteria is, will participated in the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. But I think less specifically, we did the ICSC thing. That was a pretty good situation. But I think, less specifically, I think we've got to start to identify some clusters and kind of get some momentum around that type of thinking. I see Marty Farmer nodding his head, so that must be on the right path. No, but I do think this, but I just don't know how to necessarily get that going. I think it starts with recognizing what they are. One of the things we did in Lynn, I think the first week I was working with Seth, is we had 15 different food companies over at the Kettle Cuisine building. And what we were saying to them is, we think this could be we think this could be the makings of a food cluster. Look at this, 15 of you companies, you're all good companies, you're all working on the food industry, and you're all located within X amount of miles. And we were trying to get them to kind of snowball that and market it like it's a food cluster. So I think that's a big effort. But the last thing I'll just say on this is, I've made a big effort to go to every community, meet with every town manager or administrator or mayor in the 6th district, as a way of really understanding what their profiles are and what they're all about. I think really the regional themes to me are, as I mentioned earlier, you already have a technology cluster in Burlington, Bedford, Billerica area that's pretty strong, really pretty strong. And then on the coastline, the major theme was all about coastal resiliency and planning for what could come of that. I see that as much of a challenge. I see potentially some opportunities stemming from that. The other part of that is the fishing industry and that being currently less strong. What type of innovation can happen around that? What type of innovation can come out of an ocean industry? That's a whole big thing we're talking about. So we're trying to push a Fish 2.0 program. We're always trying to work with these communities on that type of effort. But anyways, just generally speaking, we're just keep beating the drum, keep coming up with ideas. Any idea that we think is great, we just push and see what comes of it.
Okay, I've got. Oh, sorry.
Comment. When investors or different companies or employees come to this area, one of the problems that I've heard over and over, well, transportation is a challenge everywhere. If you've been on the roads, you're trying to get anywhere. But this particular area seems to be particularly difficult in the minds of people coming here. Once you're here, it's a different story. You're here, you got but for anybody who's in the Burlington area or Boston or wherever, they find the access to this area very difficult. I brought some investors from the Cambridge area, which I find Cambridge intolerable, and they come up here and go, geez, incredible, it's so difficult to get here.
Yeah.
Hello. But that is, it's definitely a challenge. I hear it over and over and over again.
I hear the same thing, and it's a mindset. People in Cambridge think they need a passport to come out here.
It's wild because Salem's 14 miles
I didn't
north
need
of
a
Boston,
visa or anything.
right?
Yeah, really.
It is
I know.
difficult to get here. Once you get past a certain point on 128, things stop. So there's a wall that you have to penetrate to get into this particular
So
area.
I would say to you that I don't think it's perception. I definitely think it's a little bit perception, and certainly there's some reality to it. But I think it's not lost on me that hundreds of thousands of people find their way into Salem every October, sometimes on the first day. So clearly people are getting here, and I've often said, yeah, we're hard to get to, but we're worth it. We have a train that has 31 train stop in a mobile station that's 31 trains and 16 buses every day. We have a ferry that operates seasonally. I don't know if it's hard to get to or hard to get around or both. I don't know that I think that, I think there's always more we can do on transportation. Lord knows. If you work at Cummings, the only way to get to Cummings from Salem, the only way, is in a car, right? You'd have to take a train and then take a long walk or figure out how to get there.
That's right.
And so we need to be thinking about the intercity connections. If you want to go to the mall in Peabody, the only way to get there is in a car. If you want to go to North Shore Community College, and you live in Beverly, the only way, or any place rather, the only way to get there in Danvers is in a car. So we've had a car-centric mentality here, and we need to certainly turn our attention to last mile, bridge connections, all those things that we know are important, some of which are not necessarily 100% in our control. So I don't want to take a defeatist attitude that transportation is an issue, because our growth is connected to that train station. We have so many commuters on a regular basis who are here, so I have to tackle it on a perception issue, which is it's 33 minutes on the express train, and we don't talk about that enough.
We had an office in US Biologic,
Yep.
and it was impossible to get there. And that wasn't perception, that was impossible.
I agree. I think there's reality and perception, but people are getting here, so how do we encourage that still to happen, and not feed into it some more, and try and address it, with our partners in the state and federal government.
Something quick to that is the major population in Boston and south of the city, doesn't have that transit access, to connecting to North Station and North. One of the things you probably hear Seth talking about quite a bit is North-South Rail Link.
Yeah.
And I can't help but just put in a plug, because it's like if you're talking about doubling and tripling the population of people who can get here easily, that's sort of a there's a way right there to connect to South Station, and then you open it up to all the people south of there. And then just quickly some perspective just from my prior role in commercial real estate and development. It's like Mass Pike is really kind of main coming out of Boston, so it's that's why Waltham is just boom, blossoming like Mass Pike, right? Then 93, that's where you've got Burlington, really really blossoming. Burlington, Woburn, that area. You don't have that type of route this direction, so.
When we're talking with people and recruiting and what are they looking for? And we talk to people that are outside of the state and that are closer to outside of Salem, that are closer to downtown Boston, or some a little bit west and South Shore. Part of the conversations that are happening right now are not how people are want to get here, but how people want to be here. If they're going to come to this area, they actually want to move here and work here. They want to move to Beverly. They want to move to Manchester. They want to work in Salem. They want to move to Marblehead. They want to be in the area, not just get here. And that's going to be a limited amount of people that that'll happen with, but we're starting to see a little bit more movement in that as we're talking to people.
So now we'll open it up to questions from the audience. I mean, we were moving that direction.
I'm a PR guy at Salem State, and I just want to talk about perception. We had a speaker come from a Boston agency, and I went for the first time to that garage down there. It had transformed my perception of what it's like to actually use rail transportation. The North Reading's going to that to get to Boston. That has transformed the image of it. If no one knows about it, I know that we work with our seniors, with the inspector, we work with the Transportation Management Association, which is doing a lot of infrastructure. People don't know about that. Those plans that are going to be transforming around here. You know very well. But just to see what that garage looks like, more than that, and how different it is, it's really quite revolutionary. So when I picked up that speaker, I was able to pick her up very comfortably there in a park in a way that you couldn't do that 6 months ago. Or, a year ago. So it is important that people don't know.
So I wanted to ask a little bit about talk about academic partnerships, right? And obviously civic engagement now, I think at Salem State, and I've seen the historical academic partnerships with cities. I was with the city of Boston for 8 years, and now with the Commonwealth. where it comes in and you get a fellow, you get a person, they do a research, here's the white paper, and blah, 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 again. How do you see it happening up here where you can create a more formal, sustained relationship so there is more value from the academic side, which has a ton of brilliance and innovation and resources and cool things that are happening? How do you take that and build something lasting for like a city of Salem that you could build from, and it's not just like, oh, we're doing the class project this year, but something that keeps building on that and creates that cycle of whether it's new employees, new innovation, new ideas, and stuff like that. Very much like the engagement lab, in that group, Boston Research Initiative, a lot of those things. How do you see that happening here, having a state university, like a very formal?
Can I take the first swing at that? So Cindy probably knows about this because she's part of the group. So out of the Boston Civic Media Group, that is a group of academics, practitioners, government people, researchers that come together and talk about these things regularly. One of our first task forces and tasks of that group was was working precisely on this problem, that academia can tend to drop into a problem, a class or a fellow has a project and they try it out, and then what? It fizzles, it just goes away. The community maybe hears about what happened with it, maybe doesn't. Maybe there's a paper published, but the outcomes of that paper aren't translated out of academies into a way that makes sense to the community that actually was the subject of the paper. So to address that problem, what we are working on right now is the creation, we've got a draft of it, is the creation of a community IRB process. And IRB is just the sort of like ethical sort of foundations of a research project, right? So you have a set of guidelines that everyone buys into before they start a project or a collaboration that is ongoing, that says there will be mutual benefits between the academic and the community that is being engaged. And you also start to create, so Boston Civic Media includes people like Dr. Vincent, who, like you were saying, that wider regional aspect, right? So this is a group of people that are sustained over years, not just the class that happens semester to semester. So that's really important too, is to have connections to the government and to practitioners in the community and civic leaders in the community over the duration. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time, and you have practices in place that are agreed upon by all parties to make sure that the benefit is not just to the academic institution, but to the community that it's looking at. So that's my.
Well, if I can add on real quick too, one of the focus that I have been taking away from this group particularly is the issue of sustainability, as well as scalability, but especially sustainability, because as a qualitative researcher, my whole focus is working with communities, building relationships with communities. And from my very, very biased perspective in this conversation, Salem has provided such an amazing place to be. For me personally, sustainability is loving the town that I live in. If I, as the researcher, love the town I live in, and right now I've got a community partner relationship with the Salem Public School District. We're working on a research project together, using that model of mutual benefit to one another. If I love the town that I live in, that's going to make me want to live here longer. That's going to build that sustainable relationship. But that issue of sustainability is hugely problematic within and across academia. We've heard the horror stories of the researchers dropping in, using the community for their own research benefits, and not giving anything back. We are trying to end that now. We are trying to actively work. We've got the best think tank I've ever been involved in, with great minds from Harvard and MIT and Emerson and Salem State, where we're trying to actively address that issue of building relationships, not just partnerships, or not just these short-term projects from semester to semester, but long-term relationships. So Emily Ullman with the school district and I are talking years out, at least a 3-year project, but also long-term. and thinking about the children as they grow through the school district and how they can continue to have the role models and mentors at Salem State University through my college students. We're thinking long-term and sustainable in that respect, but I agree with you. That is a huge issue. How do we grow and maintain that? And one of my solutions is have an amazing town to live in, and you won't want to leave. Martha.
Could I come back? It fits into that and something else that Jason said, and that is this concept of clusters. And Harvard, Michael Porter's organization for mapping the clusters and understanding how clusters work. It's the food cluster you were talking about. That is about relationships. But clusters work when they know, when they're self-aware. And you have to actually identify. You can have 20 companies that are actually related, but they don't even know that they each exist in an area. You have to actually shine a light on that. We started the bioscience in 10 years ago with the idea that if we could make other people aware that there are a lot of life sciences companies out here, maybe it would help draw other life sciences companies to the area. Well, it turns out that actually worked. There were 25 in the Cummings Center when we started up, and there are 50 now. So that kind of thing does work. And I think we can do more of that if we know what's there. In Salem, you've got pretty amazing software cluster, I think. IT are been doing that and merging that with the art group because you've got so much there, and website design and marketing, and it's all related. There's a cluster to be defined and a light shown upon it, and it will tend to draw others. But you have to make it public. You've got to publicize it. There's a marketing element. There's a mapping element. There's a community building, relationship building element. And that there's a convening element, such as what is being done right here. And that is something that government can do.
Jerry?
As someone who moved to Salem from Cambridge area, Watertown, and he used to work in Bedford, it's not getting here. It's once you get here, does the infrastructure support you staying here? And until we increase our infrastructure and we improve all those things, that technology that supports startups, support small companies, they will come, they will leave. So, and that is a big issue, not just here. When you say regional, I think in New England, some of the New England out there. Look at places around New England and what they're doing. It's not like we're creating it. This exists throughout New England. Vermont is going to Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi statewide. There are a lot of issues that we can do, but most of the time those things are seeded by government because we don't have the resources in the community to make those things happen. So somewhere down here as a region, the North Shore region, because we are separate from the South Shore in Boston, we need to come up with some type of cohesive plan for the North Shore where people can get in, get out, and they can get in and stay. As far as space here in Salem, most of the startups and IT companies, 70% of their people will never be in the office. It's kind of like this office. This is a model of the future where people come, they do their work, they go home. We like to say work is what you do, not where you are. You can deliver a deliverable from anywhere, including Europe, China, wherever, and you can be sitting right here in Salem taking acceptance of that deliverable. So I think we need to think a little bit more out of the box, but at the same time, think locally about our infrastructure. But the concept of technology and where technology is going is that technology is moving a whole lot faster than we are. So if we're going to get out there and draw people to the North Shore, then we have to improve our infrastructure. We have to make sure that we at least all the cell phone services are pumped in here, where you get all 5 of your AT&T bars, you got 2. You're not dropping calls all the time. I have to go to Boston to keep dropping calls, and I just move around the company. So it is a big issue here. But I know a lot of small companies who would move to Salem because it's the quality of life. They don't have to go to Boston. They know that. Startups know that they can start up in their basement. They don't need a 10, 20 story building. They don't need to have a whole head building. bridge or whatever they call it these days. They just need good infrastructure, and then they need people who think like them, who are in the community, who's going to support. And I think we have that already. We have a great support system. We have some infrastructure issues that we're addressing. But at the same time, we do need a cohesive plan that includes the North Shore.
We have time for one last question.
So that was fantastic because it brings up some of the agendas that we might be able to collaborate on. My hope for this event is to choose 3 major topics that we all can go back to our disparate organizations, like the North Shore Technology Council and a couple others, and we can go back and convene with our group and say, hey, these are the 3 initiatives that we're all agreeing on are our priorities. We're going to piss off a lot of people because we're not going to take care of everything, but I think my hope is to agree on a few priorities, whether it's transportation or infrastructure or housing or obviously jobs. I hope we can agree on a couple of those things right now so we can all go back, think about it with our groups, and then come back to our next meeting and say, this is how we can get behind it. This is how we can actually collaborate and take our all minimum resources and focus on these 1, 2, or 3 things that can actually make a difference, whatever they happen.
What do you think?
I think those are the 3, right? Jobs, transportation, and housing. And that's just my own kind of looking at it from a distance. I would add a conversation that we've had a lot tonight, which is the business models that we can actually foster. We're not supported by universities. We're not supported by government grants. We're supported by ourselves. We actually have business that's self-sustaining. And I believe it should be that wonderful, clean thing called clean technology, right? User experience, mobile development, coding, development. I think there's a surge of that here that might be able to be the 4th thing on that list, right? Maybe under jobs. So can we maybe take a vote on those 2 or 3 things right now? Just decide on it?
Can we also, if it would be helpful too, though, I love this idea. Could I just add is that Congressman Mosley, first term Congressman, we are we're basically like making our priorities as we go, really, and as we learn. And I mean, what you just said, I'm not sure your name, sorry, but you said something about broadband, right?
No, the state has an incubator program for small business IT, which they're cultivating. You might want to take advantage of.
Okay, so, but what I mean is like that. There's like a specific item that we could, advocate for at a federal level, and so I agree with you. Jobs, transportation, housing, but other items like that for me are really, really helpful. To weave into our policy discussions. I mean, when I mentioned earlier. First month going out to DC, one of the offices I walked into was a specific federal broadband office. I don't remember the agency name, but it was dedicated to that. So I'd like to, hear some of those specifics too.
It seems like we've got 2 things we're addressing. Dave, you're right on market too. One is the 5,000 foot view, the broad buckets, and the facts are here we're 3 or 4 dozen entrepreneurs. Forms, and with the focus with the host everybody here looking for some help. And Mary, you said there's a couple things that you need some help with. Congressman, economic development, which is the core of why we're all here with Justin, is maybe the second piece I'm thinking about it. Is there a strategic is one thing, but the tactical piece is another. And is there perhaps something, Justin, I'm just talking out loud here, a way to think about what is this? You've got a talented group of people that really care, and we talk about engagement. It's a very difficult thing these days with this political system we're in right now. But what is there? Maybe think about it and come back to us, say, from the economic development standpoint, what kinds of couple things could you use some help with, and put it out to this group or whatever. They are the same thing, and from Emerson,
whatever they are,
from Salem, whatever they are. And what is it? Because you clearly need some help, and there's a lot of expertise here, and it's free labor. But
but choose a few.
Just a few. Each of you from your perspective.
Damn it.
Yeah, right. But imagine what you're running to in Washington, and it's gonna be alphabet soup, and everybody's got their own interests. But the fact is, you're the key to a lot of these companies and these organizations, all these people, to your growth at the end of the day, or quality of life, or the folks that you're.
We're trying to facilitate exactly that
So,
nexus of how you help the
5,000
mayor
foot view is
do
one thing,
that.
strategic. The tactical is another.
Here's a proposal, we could come up with a Slack, right? And each panel member could come up with one channel, we could vote on 3 channels, and everybody here could put their email in.
Yeah.
And then you could see what happens from there.
And all of you are always welcome to come here anytime to discuss this too.
Well, and that's just that alone.
Yeah, always. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
anytime.
It's tremendous, and knowing there's 7 people here, 7 people there, and what you're doing in this space is really I was astonished when I walked in. And it had been your predecessor space, and it was like, not fine. So thank you all.
So I think at this point, we're going to break from the formal panel to let people individually
So we're
come
not
up
taking
to our.
a vote. 3 initiatives they're all going to agree on. We're not doing that right now.
No.
Well, there certainly could be a way to do that, to do some follow-up. I mean, we've got all this technology, I'm sure there's a way we can connect for everybody.
I'm sure there's something.
We can we'll set up a forum on the InnoNorth page for this event page. You guys can dump questions in, and then we'll let the panelists know when there's some questions for them to address, and then they can either send it to me, and I can push it over, or they can just go themselves and do it. We'll set that up for it.
But there's actually one last question I have for everybody in this room, and you can answer this as you continue to talk with each other, which is, what are our next steps to continue this conversation? So thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you to our panelists.
Give that in for the plug.
Motley